Hello and welcome to another edition of Extra Connections. I'm your host, James Lott Jr. And because we're going into our third year of this pandemic, more and more people are actually working from home or outside of the designated office. We have a lot of time now that people are actually safer to be there, and people are starting to like it more too also. But how does that affect actual team building, team trust, teamwork, work ethic? When normally you're all together in the same office, now you're in these little satellites, swarming around out there, doing whatever it is you want, right? So how do we build trust? How do we build connection? How do we build office culture amongst all of this? And this person actually wrote an article about this. I saw on LinkedIn, one of my favorite social media sites. He is a guest from my other show that I do for another reason, which is IAB Cal Voices here on JLJ Media. He's the Chief Galvinizer of the Galvanizing Group. He's an author, coach, speaker, and my friend, Partick Galvin. How you doing?
Hey, James, it's great to talk with you again. Thanks for giving me this chance.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for saying yes and answering back. So I love it. So you wrote this article about how to build trust with remote teams. And I was like, right away you saw it, I was like, oh my goodness, I read it. I was like, you need to be on my show. It's seemingly now, we literally are going into the third year of this thing. We're heading into that. I know a lot of my friends, like their companies are now saying, you're staying from home for a while. We're not bringing you back.
Yeah.
I know the financial stuff that in many ways it's easier than renting a space and spending all the money on all this stuff. But it's remote. So when you were doing some of your research, you did some numbers and things. I mean, this remote team thing is really, really popular, isn't it?
It is a universal thing right now. So there are studies of workers in Finland and how, trust dropped dramatically on the part of what managers thought their employees were doing. In Australia, the same thing. You have a lot of companies installing surveillance software because they don't trust their employees. You have people working in silos. Microsoft did a big study of 61,000 employees and found that people are effective. They're getting the job done. So here's the thing about remote work. You can be highly effective, but with that disconnection from your coworkers and your managers, it leads to a sense of alienation, a sense of sort of being out on your own, depression, loneliness. These are things that we were dealing with before the pandemic. Even when people were going to the office, people don't feel as socially connected as they were, let's say, 20 years ago. And it's just gotten exacerbated with the pandemic, and people by necessity can't necessarily be out in the world. So everything is kind of in flux. But the one thing I know for sure is we're not going back to 2019. It's going to be different. It's the next normal, the new normal, and virtual is going to be part of it, even when the pandemic subsides and we have that confidence that we can go out in the world and not get sick or get other people sick. We're going to be doing a lot of stuff remotely. So we have to do it intelligently.
Yeah, I mean, I was writing down some things that is happening. It affects communication, team building, accountability, trust, feeling validated. And my favorite, of course, the work-home life balance.
Yes.
I laugh because because a lot of my friends before 2020, but thought when you work at home, I can watch Oprah and work. They don't get it. And so you said something that was very key that now I'm working home. I've been working from home 2 years now.
Yeah.
You said something that was key that's really true. You can be effective. You can be productive. You can get work done. And a lot of times you get more work done because you're at home, actually.
Yeah, and actually it's leading to a lot of burnout.
Yes.
And the smarter employers are seeing how hard it is to hire people. And they're actually doing things like giving people some Fridays off. Or during the summertime, one of our largest clients, a Fortune 100 company, was giving Friday afternoons free because they thought that they needed to give their employees permission to not be in front of their computer monitors. And it sounds benevolent, but the reality is you have a better worker when you have a happier worker. And people don't always necessarily find that life balance. And the insidious thing about your computer and about email and text and all these social media that we're on is they never stop. So we need to either check ourselves, we all need to do that, and realize that we have to, nurture ourselves so that we remain productive and happy and we're in it for the long term. But also our employers need to realize that we can't necessarily self-regulate, and they need to do things for their employees to put them in a better spot if they want to hang on to them, if they want to attract employees. So I think the good news about this tight labor market that we're in is employers are beginning to think about, okay, yes, they can be effective. They can, push out that amount of paper, or they can get that number of loans processed, or whatever the company is. But are we creating a happy workforce? Because if they're not happy, they're going to start looking, recruiters are going to start calling, and next thing you know, they're on to someone else. And then you have the expense of retraining, and who knows if it works out. So, hang on to the people who are good and help them find that balance. It's really
it's one of those things because, like I said, for me, so I have a giant bedroom. So my bedroom is the size of a studio apartment. So I chose the farthest end away from my bed to be my office. Everything's, I'm like, like in the corner over here. My bed's way over there by windows and plants and trees. It's way over there.
Yeah.
So I did it on purpose. But even with that, though, Patrick, there's times I'm in bed going, I could do that. I could just do one more thing.
Yes, of course.
So when you say with the burnout, it's real. So I choose to make myself go outside. I have a huge yard, go in my garden, or just like we have a tendency to sit here because we're relaxed. We're wearing nice shirts on top for Zoom meetings, but like just, sweats for short and shorts for underneath. We're relaxed.
Yeah.
We're not in any kind of like the bosses are going to walk by 5 minutes to look at you. It's like, so it's a very interesting dynamic that for me, I was like, okay, I'm my own boss, but it's just kind of like I had people underneath me that were nearby, and studio heads that would come walk by. And it's like, it's just so weird. I don't have that. It's just,
Well, you just outlined, I think, a great best practice for the folks who follow you, James, and that is that separation between work life and personal life. If it's at all possible, then do it. I was talking to a realtor friend of mine, and she said that a lot of folks are converting dining rooms into offices. And that's a trend that actually new builders are taking out, like a dining room. They're just building kind of the great room, the kitchen, and then the dining table is kind of part of the kitchen. And what used to be the dining room in the new homes they're designing is the office, because they know that there's going to be this demand, and it is so important. There's a lot of studies done on that separation and how it's really good for mental health, ideally to be able to shut doors so you don't have to look into that workspace. It's physically separate. So I think the building market is going to catch up with this work environment that we're in as we start doing this more in the future. But what you did is smart. I mean, that's a really good thing. Is just create some separation as much as you possibly can.
And I try, and I want to say to people out there, I know I got flack for this during the pandemic. Yes, I have a big house. I looked out, I have a big house. Everybody has a big house. I get it. You have an apartment. But the point is to still try to find something to make it separate. They have partitions, they have things you can do just don't have it next to your bed or in front of your bed or in front of your TV. Like just have it somewhere else.
There's some cool products out there now. Your computer, your laptop, for your file cabinets, and then you just close the doors at the end of the day. And if you have a small space, that's a great thing, is get a kind of an office in a box that you can literally close it just so you don't have to look at it when you're off hours.
That's true. They have the stand-up desks. You have those that
as well.
Around. They have kind of goodies out there.
Yeah.
I love shopping for office stuff. That's my like side thing. I look at new office products.
Yep.
They do have that. But one of the things I want to touch upon, of course, because I'm glad you brought those points. Those were good. I didn't know about the whole building thing. Is communication. So this communication actually is the gateway into some of the other things we'll talk about, like trust and all that stuff. Okay. I know it's hard because now that we're not in front of each other, I mean, we have some Zoom stuff, that's one thing. But mostly, would you agree, most of the communication is email and text, right? At this point.
Sadly, for too many people, that is the case. I'll tell you what, though, James, one of my best practices from the pandemic is going to continue on into the future, and that is the power of virtual coffee. Getting together with people, you can't meet in a coffee shop because of health conditions, but you can say, hey, why don't we get together for a cup of coffee? Now, I've got an office behind me. It's on my green screen. I have a coffee shop that I'll put on my green screen. So when I have a virtual coffee, I'll pull up a coffee shop and I'll actually be holding a mug saying, I'm so excited to do this. There is nobody I've asked to have a virtual coffee with who said no. Everyone is a little bit bored of the same crowd. It's really easy to get the time of some people who you might not think would want to necessarily talk with you. And it's important for new connections. And also, if you're working with people, yes, it's great. You can be efficient and all that, but work in some time for that virtual water cooler. Get together with your colleagues I did a wine tasting where they actually sent out small little glasses of bottles of wine and like little laboratory bottles. And there was an expert online, and he was actually mixing music with the wine tasting. So you can get creative. So I think that when it comes to communications, the tools can be oppressive if it's just text-based, if it's email and text. But what we're doing right now, having a conversation, it's so important to building rapport and connection. And when people want to do business with others, it's because they know, like, and trust them. It's hard to build that level of trust with people just through the written word. There's something about talking, looking at somebody. It's not the same thing as if we were sitting down there somewhere on Sunset Boulevard having a coffee together. But you know what? It's the next best thing.
I agree. And I always want to bring that up, folks, because you said a couple of things already in that sentence, in that paragraph, is you can't always tell correct tone from text and messages and email. We think they're saying something, but when they may not be saying what you think they're saying, or they mean it the way you think they mean it, and you could read a word wrong. That was happening more and more. I have clients and colleagues who are like, did you say? I'm like, no, I didn't say that. I said this. Oh, now I see. Like, once we talked, it was like, now I get it. I read it wrong, or I was so busy skimming. We skim through our emails sometimes. You're like, give me an attitude. No, there's no attitude. You have an attitude because you're doing something else. And
right.
So I'm saying that's what I'm glad you said about the virtual comments, because I'm sure that's that's attributing to the lack communication, the feeling not valued. I mean, well, they hardly ever email me, so they must not care about. Like, I'm sure it all plays into it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and some people have realized the power of it. So I know a group of executives that they make time on their schedule, just open it up and say to the entire workforce, I'm here for a virtual coffee. Do you want to meet up? And the employees will just go on and they'll schedule those coffees. I think those are really smart executives, because they don't go in it with the agenda of, here's what we're trying to do as a company. They're going in there with the agenda. Hey, how are you doing? What's your big challenge right now? How are you holding up in the pandemic?
Yes.
How could we support you, our employee, better? What sorts of things are you hearing from our customers right now? So it's not unstructured. I mean, they have questions. And I think you can make a really valid argument that what they're doing in those conversations is probably a lot more important than many things they do in email and text, because they're really getting a pulse of their organization, of the needs of their people, and the people who their people serve, their customers. And without those conversations, they're shooting in the dark. They come up with strategies and plans, but they need to really schedule that time. And that's what we had when we were in offices. What you were saying, people would walk by your desk. We need to create the equivalent of that in the digital space. And I think leaders need to show an openness to doing that. And then folks tend to mirror what the leaders are doing. And hopefully then that descends on down, and people who are managers are doing that with their team members, and it sort of propagates out that way. But it's really important. What's seen as unstructured time, virtual coffees, I would make the argument that it's actually more important. I know for me, these virtual coffees have been my biggest business driver, because people who I have gotten to know through virtual coffees and gotten to know their needs, I've been able to give them information, introduce people to them. And ultimately, what comes around goes around. You don't do it for the quid pro quo, but by making yourself available, things come back to you.
Yeah, but I want people to know that it's the communication is key, of course, but just this whole thing of just always texting and emailing is it's artificial on some level. I mean, it's functional. It's there, obviously, to get points across and send attachments and things. But, I like the virtual coffee. They never try that with some of my people, because I mean, I've had colleagues who just literally, when I said to them, how are you doing? They literally just I had a couple actually cry during the main part when we were heavily in the pandemic in 2020. We're just like, no one's asked me that. It's all because we're so busy. I need this. And then I said, just before we start, how are you doing? And they were so grateful that I asked that. A simple question, right? It's a simple question. But we're collectively, I want to make sure everybody realizes this, we're collectively around the world going through this at the same time. It's one of the unique situations in history. Yep. We're all going through it. It's not that you're not just on the floor, like, who's had COVID, who hasn't. Like, we're all affected by this. It's not just those folks or just those folks. It's like we're all affected.
Yeah.
So we're in this together.
It's the great equalizer, right?
Right. we're all in this together. We're all in this together. So I think so. I'm glad you said something. As soon as you said, I really love that. But yeah, it's we got to find ways to really kind of still personalize while using modern technology. That's the whole thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I'm big into eye contact, and I'm big into the conversation. Now, some people I know are busy. Even getting them to do a virtual coffee might be hard. So what I am doing more and more is I'll pick up my phone and I'll just shoot a quick little video to someone saying, hey, I was thinking about you. I read this thing in the newspaper that I thought you might be interested in. I'm going to send a link, but I know that you've been struggling. I think this is going to help you out. I can do that on my phone in the same amount of time it takes me to type an email. And they see me directing something to them. I'm creating a video for one person. So you have all these influencers, people trying to create videos that go viral. Well, I've had a video to one person really help somebody take themselves to a better place, and it's built a better relationship, and it's taken me to a better place by having that stronger relationship. So I think we're in this age where people are trying to communicate to the masses, and what they fail to realize is these tools that we use to communicate with the masses are equally as effective one-on-one. And when we think beyond text and email and start sending video, and there's some great ways you can do it. You can just record on your phone. There's a company out there called Loom that allows you to do a free video of a certain length. I have a paid subscription. There's a lot of different options out there, but yeah, use video as a way to stay really more engaged with somebody than just the written stuff. The written stuff just doesn't carry the same water.
Yes, and I also want to add to that. I have some colleagues who send me audio messages sometimes too.
I love that.
I take that also. So I'm saying both, but what you're saying is completely true. Video, audio, more personal. You hear it from them. You hear their voice. You see them. It's good.
Yeah, you can go into LinkedIn messaging and just hit a microphone and create a 60-second message. And I'm amazed at how many people get those from me saying, I didn't know you could do that. So it's there. It doesn't cost you like a LinkedIn premium membership. It is there for the taking. And honestly, it's great that they cut you off after 60 seconds. You can't record longer than 60 seconds, but you don't want to. The less is the more. With an audio message, if you go more than a minute, they're not going to listen to it.
Exactly.
So it forces you. It's a good way to practice staying on point, because it forces you to do a minute or less.
And that's a good point too. Look, if you're on a platform, look at all the functions of that platform. You never know what you can and cannot do. That's part of your either free or paid memberships to things. That goes from Twitter to LinkedIn to Instagram to Microsoft Teams to Zoom. Like really look at what you can do. And I always say about switching things up. I'm on TikTok, of course, too. So I'm on TikTok. There's all these kind of things you can do for your business, for your team, for your bosses, for your employees, for your clients. There's a lot of things. So be creative. And again, like I say, you're not spending an arm and a leg for stuff. It's not anything major, crazy. It's usually a button or this.
Yeah,
or that.
A lot of times it's free.
It's free.
It's just using it and sticking with it a little bit. So I think a lot of people, when it comes to sending personal videos, they think, oh man, I don't like seeing myself on camera. I don't like the sound of my voice. I stumbled. I made a mistake. Well, the problem is perfect is the enemy of good. And good is all people want. I mean, YouTubers, a lot of them who have huge followings mess up all the time. They do jump cuts if they're sophisticated. Sometimes they just blow right through and just keep talking. So if that's good enough for thousands or millions of followers, then if you're sending a message to your colleague or to your boss or to a customer and you stumble, just let it rip. It doesn't matter. You're a real person. And you're going to actually resonate because you have the confidence to slip up and just keep going, because we're human beings and we should give ourselves that grace to just move on, right?
I agree. And I'm a person who does live television all the time. So trust me, I fix my mouth all the time. It's great. I don't care. I can move. Let's keep moving.
I think it helps. I think it makes you more real.
It does. No, it does. It makes you people nowadays, especially, they want authentic. They want someone they can look at. And again, back to the trust stuff. They want to be able to look at you and go, you know what? I like him or I like her. Okay, I'm good. I'll continue listening or watching or working with. You said something also key earlier. People like working with people they like working with. It's one of those, I'm sorry, folks. This is how it is. Yes. That's how it is in Hollywood. I know for a fact. You see the same folks get hired over and over again for shows. I'm like, that's because they're nice. they're friendly, they're fun, they show up on time, they do their job.
Yep.
That's what I've been doing for the last 15 years in this business. I've always done that. I did it in my previous business with IAB West, IBS, all that. I just always came in, smiled, did my job, made some jokes and laughs. And, that's it. Just people want to be around people. We're at work most of the time.
Yeah.
Compared to our home lives, unfortunately. A lot of us are work. The balance is it's a little more on the work side.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
why not make it pleasant for yourself and those around you? That's how I look at it.
I'm on the same page with you, James, for sure.
All right. Okay, so we talked about virtual coffees, and we talked about some video stuff. What are some other things that when you're looking at the article, and as you as a galvanizer, think that people could take away about building and keeping the team together and keeping them.
So I think doing things that help people with their mind, body, spirit, those are considered sort of like the softer things. And there's a lot of research out there showing that soft skills and things that, nurture people's personal lives have a huge payback value. And they're not necessarily expensive. So I'm a member of Kaiser, the HMO Kaiser. And Kaiser offers to all of its members the Calm app. And the Calm app is a wonderful meditation app. There's a couple great ones out there. There's Headspace and Insight, and there's probably 10 really big ones. But Calm is one of the top 3. And it costs Kaiser probably, I don't know, maybe 10, 20 bucks a year. But boy, they know that if they take care of my mental health, my physical health is going to be better, and it's going to cost them less money. So all you have to do is look at an HMO. If they're investing in their members because they're not doing it because they're nice people. I know people, Kaiser, they're nice people, but it's a bottom line benefit. So I think that companies and managers need to think about ways of really helping people on the personal level, whether it's with meditation or whether it's with Noom, some sort of diet things. That's a really good start. And then also helping people learn some of the softer skills. So my company is about relationship building. We work with teams and we train them on relationship building. So that some people say, well, that's a soft skill. Well, relationship building first is a mindset. You have to think it's important. And if you're in business and you think it isn't important,
there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong.
Just think a little bit more. I think, James, you hit on it, on how important it is in your career and in Hollywood. It's true across industries, doesn't really matter.
Right.
But it's not something people take a class in business school. They might kind of have that flair, or they might have a really good boss who sort of shows them the ropes. But it's also possible that they are interested, but just have never really learned. And it's a skill set that can be taught. So there are many of these softer skills that actually there's some great companies out there that offer training in those things. And, going back 100 years in my LinkedIn article, which I'm guessing you'll probably link to this podcast interview, this goes back to the turn of the century, not this century we're in, but in 1918, the Carnegie Foundation did a study, and they found that soft skills were actually more important than many of the analytical things like accounting and bookkeeping and finance and all that soft skills really have a strong ROI. And that was followed up fairly recently by Harvard and Stanford and some other institutions. And they found just a tremendous ROI on soft skill training. So they call them soft skills. I think it's a misnomer, because I think in terms of importance, they're critical. I don't like the word soft, but that's what they're known as.
It's funny because I agree with you on that. What's funny is I've been working since I was 15 years old, so I've been working since the mid 80s, a long time. And I've seen the culture of work change. And I remember when I first started, it was rule by fear. When you're a manager, you need to manage it, rule by fear. And when you're a worker, just keep your head down and do it. You don't socializing at work. No making friends. You have a job to do. Just get it to me. Everything is scheduled. And I've noticed now, between then and now, I feel like many companies I work with now are way more productive. But the thing you call soft skills, so they're calling soft skills, it's turning out that they really are the most important skills. Yes, anybody can be taught a job. I can be taught how to do this. I can be taught how to do that. Or people go to school. You learn all this. You learn all the skills of the job. The technical skills of the job. That's great. I can hire 10,000 people to do the same job, right? But the important part they're finding now is, I know it's also just my own life, work life, is that, but you guys are great, and you're compassionate, and you are understanding, and you're not a pushover. You're still a boss, but you're showing me respect, so I'm showing you respect because you're showing me respect.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. I think those things are finally coming to the forefront. At first, we were like, it's those millennials and those Gen Zers, they're ruining everything. But I'm noticing some of the things they're saying are good.
No, it is good. It is good because I think everything is in reaction to something else. So they're coming into a world where people don't have that softer edge polished, and they're saying, hey, something's missing here. And because of that, you're now having some more enlightened companies and enlightened managers saying, yeah, you're right. We can learn some things about that. So, I think you can get down on, and everyone always gets down on the generation coming up, but there's always lessons that we can learn and how we can get better.
I do agree. That's what I'm saying. I'm seeing them, and we're seeing it right now. I saw a whole seminar on this where there's a lot of work out there, right? So I'm in LA. I see signs everywhere from Bell to upper companies.
Yep.
No one's taking the jobs. These people are really sitting back and going, wait, I want to decide what I really want to do. Would this place actually make me feel good? So it's funny, your article came out. It's like, that's kind of what's kind of happening now. It's like, do I want to work for this company? Would I just be another cog in the wheel?
I don't want to be a Borg.
Right, be a Borg. He's like, thank you. I use my term. Exactly. Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So they're really sitting back and going, before it was all like, get that job, get that company, get that job, go there. Now it's starting to go, well, would I actually be happy there? Do I want to be with this person? What does it mean for me to work there? I'm very shocked by this. I didn't know this was going to ever happen. I didn't know this was going to come like this.
Yeah, I think it's beyond the money. I think, and this has been known for a while. So a lot of companies think, well, if we pay people really well, we can treat them however we want. But it goes back decades where the research shows that the number one thing that people are looking for at work is a feeling like their voice matters. And pay, yes, it's important. Of course, it's important. We all have bills to pay. We all have responsibilities, but you can only hang on to someone so long. And if the environment changes in which there is a lot of work, well, then they can go and get maybe the same salary or slightly higher, and your ability to retain goes out the window. So this time that we're in right now, I think some companies are running to catch up with this greater meaning to my life through work. And I think that's a real positive thing. It's not just you see, salaries going up. Yes, that's driving some inflation, but what's not being talked about enough, and I think it's a real positive takeaway, is companies are beginning to think, how can we be a better workplace? How can we create an environment that our employees are feeling engaged, they're feeling taken care of, and it's not just about monitoring their productivity.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, I think it's a great thing. I mean, I wish I had jobs in my past that were a little nicer. If I like back home, I wish that my boss was a little nicer. But I mean, I always a person who tried to rule from respect. I watched the new Boba Fett series, and it's a big thing right now. And he's trying to rule respect and not just kill everybody. And I know how that feels. I'm like, I was always the person who came in after the last management was so mean and scary.
Right.
The employees were all like, scattered and scared. I was like, no, because to me, when you empower somebody, it's like a garden. When you water a plant, the plant grows. When you don't water it, it dies. So literally, when you're watering your employees to grow, they will. When they feel comfortable, they can do this. Now we're talking remotely. So as employers, we should be doing what we can.
Yes.
To support them in ways that, again, you're not pushovers, you're not rolling over, you're not just like throwing the rules out the window. Like just kind of being there to be a support and saying, we're not in the same office, we're not in the same hemisphere, we're not in the same wherever it is now.
Right.
But you're still part of us. We're part of the company.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
That's good. You're right. This is gonna be an ongoing conversation. I have friends who work for the state, friends who work for departments. Are like, now we were supposed to be home until like September, and now it moved to November, and then we went to January, and like I said, you'll be home, you'll be there for a while. And I remember, I'll never forget, many of my friends and family were so against it. They want separation of home and work. I want to go to work and blah, blah, blah. I say, but half the time you brought your work home anyway, but that's no story. But I was like, now they're like, I love it. I can still do laundry. I can make dinner. I don't feel rushed.
Well, and where you are, the commutes are so horrible, right? I mean, how much time were people spending in traffic?
Yeah. Oh, well, LA.
Yeah.
Well, Bay Area too. LA, Bay Area. I know you're in Oregon, but it's like, I don't know how it's up there, but I know down in Southern California and parts of Northern California, it's horrible.
It's hideous. Yeah, no, I think people are realizing the benefits. And there was an interesting interview that I heard with the chief economist of LinkedIn. And she said something like, before the pandemic, 1 out of every 67 jobs talked about virtual potential. And now it was 1 out of every 7 was talking about continuous, not just pandemic induced virtual, but that is part of the job, that the job can be done virtual going out into the future. And that is a major shift. We have clients that said, we are not a work at home company, that we believe that you have to be in the office, and they've seen success from home-based workers. And now they've kind of come around. And I think what we're talking about here is sort of next generation stuff, and that, okay, yes, they can be effective, but how do we keep them happy so they stay with us and not pick up the phone when the recruiter calls and jump to another company? And I think that's where the smarter companies are investing some time and some money in that right now.
I think we have to always remember that life evolves. Our society, culture, including work culture, does evolve. And that whole, we've always just done it this way, and it's always been this way.
Yeah.
We have to not hold a tight grip on that. There's some things will in your company will always be this way, it's fine. But there's some things like this that has to evolve. When a pandemic happened, I had friends who just literally fell apart in their business. They were not prepared. And I did a podcast, which I still do. I became Voice, which you were on. I talked to many of the people, these small independent agents, who either they were already prepared for virtual, or they had to get prepared for virtual, and now they love it. It's like, so sometimes you have to pivot sometimes in business. That's what happens when you have a business. But it can be really beneficial to you and wonderful and lovely and all these things, but not just holding on to what once was. We're not Luddites. We can't just like not do. I'm not doing anything. I'm gonna stand my ground. It's not like electricity or whatever. Like you can't do that. You have to kind of move along with it in some form.
Yeah, no, and it's always been that way. So I've been reading recently a lot of the great Stoic thinkers of ancient Greece and ancient Rome, and some of their quotes are so timely. And one of my favorite quotes, I didn't realize it went all the way back to ancient Greece, was the only constant in life is change. Now, you've heard a lot of variations of that that other more modern famous people have said, but I mean, that goes back to 2,500 years ago. And the ancient Greeks were realizing, hey, you know what, if we want to remain an empire, if we want to stay in power, if we want our company to do well, we've got to go with the flow. So it's funny how people somehow think that they're not kind of under that sort of guidance, and they really should be, because that is the only thing as a human being that we know for sure is things are going to change, and we either fight it or we improve.
And as we, I could talk to you forever. This is great conversation. So as we end this, my grandmother used to say all the time, not all money is good money. And I'm sure all of our grandparents have said that on some level, you when you're a kid or whatever. And she's right. She was completely right. Not all money is good money. And I actually left a job that I was unhappy at because they thought they could treat me how they wanted to. And I've now been doing this for 13 years. So I'm very happy where I'm at right now. So that's the point. And it's remote. Right now it's remote. So we're doing it. But make sure you take care of yourselves out there, folks. Make sure you take care of yourselves. Step away from the computers. Try to talk to your colleagues. I like some of the things that you mentioned in here, like the virtual coffees. I'm going to try that with some of my staff and some of my colleagues, and see if that picks up. I'll Patrick, that picks up for me.
Keep me posted on that, James.
I'm going to try. I'm just going to try that, because I think that's a great idea. Because I always get phone calls and emails like, "Can I talk to you? Can I talk to you?" I'm like, "Man, it's the time. We'll do that." And in the beginning, just go first. How are you doing? So how are you doing? And then go into whatever we're going to talk about possibly.
I love it.
Patrick, thanks for being on the show. I'm so glad. And we'll have to be back on again, no time for any other topics that come up.
Well, thank you, James. It's always fun talking with you. I love your energy, man. You just exude enthusiasm. It is wonderful.
Thank you very much. So tell folks where they can find you and your company. And you have a book out. Do you have books out?
Yeah, I've got 2 books. So hold them up there. The Trusted Way and the Connector's Way. And these are books about relationship building. So they're all about making those connections in the real world, the digital world, how you develop trust with people, whether it's face-to-face, online, their parables, their stories. You can learn more about all that stuff at mynamepatrickgalvin.com. I'd love to connect with anyone out there who wants to connect.
And I will have all this stuff in the descriptions below, of course. You guys can do that. But please check them out and check out his books. They're good. I talked about it with them on another show.
Oh, terrific.
Thank you. Good. So everybody, I'm James Lott Jr. You can follow me. We're all James Lott Jr. Sold at James Lott Jr. on all social media platforms and TikTok, like I said, on TikTok. There's a lot of help.com is the website. We're on every streaming platform we can think of for extra connections, every platform, literally from iHeartRadio to Spotify to Google, Apple, and of course on my online network, JLJ Media, here on YouTube. So wherever you find us, subscribe or follow. It's either like subscribe, follow, hit, whatever it is. Just
like,
press that button. Just like, whatever it is. It's always different things. Just like it, like us. Just like, subscribe, follow, and share this. Actually, share this interview with anybody you think needs to hear this. If there are people who work for companies or management, or just have them pass them along. And if you have anything you want to say, comment below, and I'll pass them on to Patrick if there's any questions you have for him or further things you want to know from him. If you're afraid to talk to him directly, I'll patch you through. I'll be the conduit. We'll work it out. Everyone, please, again, your employees are important to you. You as an employee, you're important to your company. Let's find a way to bridge that gap and make a connection like this show, Extra Connections. See you next time.